morning and welcome to the Stahls TV morning show. I'm Zach.
And I'm Courtney, and this is not your usual heat press behind us.
No, it's not. It's not a heat press at all.
So we have an exciting morning show planned. We mentioned last week that ZSK Embroidery came in, helped us set up an embroidery machine, got us running, so we can use it now to show you guys some of the new trends that we're seeing that we talk about a lot on the morning show in Applique. And really, any heat printing business has a reason to use Applique. It creates just a unique, high-quality finish that you can't get with other heat transfer materials. So whether you have an embroidery machine or not, we're going to look at different ways to get Applique and some of the trends that we're seeing and how to do that.
You know, that's actually a really good question. While you get started embroidering our first design here, we should poll the audience and find out how many of you guys actually do have an embroidery machine. So Taylor, if you could launch that poll for us just to give us an idea of how many folks have an embroidery machine, and this is whether you have 1 head, 4 heads, 12 heads, whatever it is. Let us know if you have an embroidery machine, and we'll report the results here in just a few seconds.
All right, so we'll go ahead and launch that. I'm going to start this up, and we'll head over to the table. We can talk a little bit about Applique.
Sounds good. So get ready for the background noise, guys. We're going to hear embroidery. All right. Okay, did we have a chance to close the poll? Karen, do we have some results on if we're embroiderers or not?
Yep, 52% own an embroidery machine and 48% do not.
Okay, so 52% of you do have an embroidery machine and 48% do not. And that's actually, when we were doing rehearsal, almost the exact numbers that we guessed would happen from our viewership. So as you can hear, the embroidery machine's running in the background, but let's talk a little bit about Applique and why you would want to use it in the first place.
Right, so there's a lot of benefits to using Applique. Obviously, if you're doing direct embroidery, one of the big benefits is just time and the cost of direct embroidery. So now I can get large fill patterns without having to go through all of the work of running my machine out for 20, 30 minutes doing a direct embroidery.
Yeah, exactly. So the Applique process, kind of what you're referencing, and you'll see it in one of the video segments that we have for you today, but Applique is going to cut your machine time down by about 3 times at least. So if your stitch count was normally about 60,000 stitches for a direct fill, moving to the Applique process, you're going to be looking somewhere between 15 to 20,000 stitches, depending on if you're doing satin stitch or zigzag stitch. I mean, it can vary, and we'll take a look at some of those different stitch types and different looks that you can achieve with it. So not only does it decrease machine time, it decreases, in theory, the amount of cost, depending on the material that you're going to be using.
Right.
And it also increases the amount of items that you can actually embroider to. A lot of people are doing applique sewing on items that you wouldn't normally direct embroider, especially with those big fills.
Right. Yeah, one of the big benefits that I really love about Applique that we're going to focus a lot of this morning's episode on is just the patterns you can get with Applique. So obviously everybody watched the Super Bowl last night, or I like to assume everybody watched it.
Everybody but our producer, Courtney Singer, did.
Right,
yeah. We talked about that this morning.
Some watch it for the actual game, some watch it obviously for the advertisements, but one thing you're going to notice during the game was just the metallics and a lot of the logos, and we saw it through Super Week on all of the uniforms, just the use of effects and different metallics and different images, and a lot of it was Applique on the garments that we saw throughout the Super Bowl, just to kind of cherish the 50th anniversary of the Super Bowl that we saw this year. So we're going to look today at how we can get effects that are patterned, distressed, or have a glitter finish to them and be able to get that different look in Applique on the garments.
Okay, and closer to the end of the show, for those of you who don't have embroidery equipment, hang in there with us because we're going to show you how to get embroidered looks at the end by just using your heat press as well.
Right, absolutely.
Okay, so let's start with the first thing that's trending that we want to look at, which is the distressed applique
distressed
pattern.
Applique is surprising to me. It's still, probably 10 years in the running, we're still seeing this as a really trendy item for schools. And, it's obviously pioneered by companies like Abercrombie & Fitch or American Eagle, but we're still seeing this as a really trendy way to get school designs or group designs custom made onto hoodies and sweatshirts, which of course are ideal for applique patterns.
Yeah, absolutely. So Taylor, if you can zoom in for us, we want to show some of these looks that we have set up.
So this one is actually a 2-color distressed applique. So you have a couple of options when you're creating distressed applique. The easiest way, and the one that I'm going to recommend to our viewers, is to order the applique pieces already cut and sew file from the company that creates your cut pieces for you. That way you can easily just get the pieces, lay them out, and run your stitch to create this really distressed look. And of course you could create this if you had the right equipment, but it gets to be expensive, and it's really just easier to be able to get something like this.
Yeah, so some of the reasons that Appliqué is scary to a lot of embroiderers, because we asked if you have an embroidery machine, we didn't necessarily ask if you're doing Appliqué or not. But one of the reasons that it's scary is because digitizing is a little bit different. So you have to decide what stitch type you want to use, whether it's a bean stitch or a straight stitch, depending on what you call it, whether you want to use a zigzag stitch, a satin stitch. Then you start dealing with the tension on the machine because you're sewing through an extra layer of fabric or maybe 2 layers of fabric, depending on what you're dealing with. But there are tons of videos at stahlstv.com to kind of help you out with that. And Stahls actually, in the way they build the product and the sew files, has solved a lot of those problems for you already, to where you don't have to worry about cutting this stuff in-house or digitizing in-house as well and making big mistakes there.
Right, so that really cuts down on the time again and just the worry of being an applique. It's funny, when we got that embroidery machine, I made the joke that it was way easier to use the heat press because it took me forever to figure that out. And the hardest thing about the embroidery process wasn't running the embroidery machine. I can press the buttons just fine and remember where to go, but it was really in digitizing the file and creating the sew file. And so if you're just getting started into Applique, it's really beneficial to just be able to order those cut pieces and the sew file from your manufacturer.
Yeah, and put your embroidery machine to work. Do we have a couple more looks?
We do. We can flip through a couple more of these. So the distress pattern changes depending on how distressed you want your look to be. So this one's one of my favorites. I think it's really trendy and popular for schools and just getting a really rugged, distressed look that we see in a lot of garments. This one's a little bit less distressed, so you're getting a little subtle image. If you're creating applique for maybe more of a corporate look or something that's a little bit more higher end, you might want to go with a little bit less distress. So those are a couple of options. These are all made with a cotton chino twill, which give them that nice distressed kind of clean look that we love with applique.
Yeah, exactly. And with these types of word mark designs, we're looking more at putting these on heavier garments that can still withstand the amount of stitches that maybe embroidery would withstand. But if you're going to do some single letters, maybe some monogramming, then you can start looking at t-shirts and some lighter garments to embroider on with that applique look as well.
Absolutely. All right, so that kind of covers some of the trends we're seeing with distressed applique and basic applique, but the rest of the episode we're really going to focus on patterns, because patterns are just growing everywhere, not only in fan wear on sweatshirts and t-shirts and things, but we're seeing it in names and numbers on jerseys for basketball, baseball, football, and so being able to create those patterns is really going to be beneficial to decorators this year.
Yeah, absolutely. And the first segment that we want to take a look at is one of our Stahls TV presenters, Mark Marola. He's going to show you how to achieve an applique pattern using an eco-solvent printer. So he's going to be printing direct to one of our CAD-CUT materials, and that's kind of where the rest of the show is going to take us, is using Stahls materials that were originally designed for cutting on vinyl cutters to not necessarily replace embroidery, but to really complement it and replace it in some aspects. But we've gone back and we've really found ways that embroidery can add to the look of CAD-CUT material. So the first one that we're going to look at, Mark Marola printing a pattern on Express Print, and he's really going to walk through the whole, what we call rip-away applique process.
Right, absolutely. So we'll go ahead and launch that video and take a look at it.
Sounds good.
Hi, I'm Mark Marola with Stahls TV. Today, I'd like to talk about rip-away applique using Express Print. What the Express Print is, it's a product manufactured by Stahls for use in digital EcoSolve printers. We've taken that product, printed patterns on it in order to sew out. So I take a sheet, we run it through one of our printers, print out this pattern, write a sew file, and we're able to embroider on it. It gives it a really unique look because you get this pattern right in your applique. It gives such a unique look you can't get with regular embroidery or standard applique. So what we're going to do to show you how easy it is I'm going to go trim this piece out, spray tack it, and then we're going to go over to the embroidery machine and start sewing it out. I'm going to peel off what I don't want. Make sure I get all my cavities, make sure the edges are all clean. And then we're going to bring it over to the heat press. I've also put a pillow on it so the satin stitches, which create the rip away, can sink in and we get a good press on it. Okay, we're finished. You saw how easy that was. Look at the uniqueness of this. You get that pattern in that applique that you can't get with standard embroidery or even standard applique. Now, to do some quick numbers, I have about 10,000 stitches in this particular design. At 10,000 stitches running 800 stitches per minute, I can sew out about 5 per hour. Now, my costs, I've got $8 into a hoodie, my thread is pennies, my express print cost with the pattern is about $2. So I have about $10 each into this. Times 5, because I'm going to get 5 an hour, my total hourly cost is $50. Now I can sell these for about $50, so my hourly profit comes to about $200. You can command that kind of money because in this pattern you can put anything you want in there. You can put a corporate logo, you could put a school logo, a sports team logo, you name it, you can do it. You can't do that with regular embroidery. For Stahls TV, I'm Mark Marola. Thanks for watching.
So we want to thank Mark for taking the time to record that video here at the Stahls TV studios. As you guys can see, one of the more intriguing things to me wasn't necessarily the process, because the applique process is very similar, whether you're using twill or whether you're using rip away, except for that heat press and the ripping portion. But the amount of money that Mark projected that you can make just by doing some rip away applique on your embroidery machine was $250 in profit per hour. That's pretty compelling information, I think.
Right.
And then, that's based on one embroidery head. If you're getting orders larger than that and you have more embroidery heads, you can just multiply it from there, essentially. So Mark showed us using Express Print, which was the Stahls digital material that either our services department can print for you, or if you have a Roland or Mamaki print cut machine, you can print that yourself as well to do the rip away applique process. What you're showing us is actually another way to create a pattern, not solvent printing, but sublimation printing.
Right, so that method kind of creates a nice matte finish, but of course we were talking a lot earlier about different effects, and with that comes glitters and metallics. So of course I'm going to talk a little bit about glitter, and what we did for this applique finish is we actually took the white CAD-CUT glitter flake. So CAD-CUT glitter flake is one of those products that's compatible with rip away applique, just like Mark had shown on the video, so it tears really easily. And if you've been following the morning show or any of the videos on Stahls TV, you've noticed that we've been able to actually sublimate with sublimation paper directly onto CAD-CUT glitter flake to create patterned finishes. And it works really well for this applique because you're just taking a large sheet of basically both products. And you don't have to worry about registration. It makes it really simple and easy, but it creates really cool custom patterns with a glitter effect to them. And so what I've done here obviously is a tribal pattern. I'll set this off to the side so I can do the next step, but you can get really creative with custom mascots and animal print and different logos for different markets, even if you just want to do a large full color image. So I'm going to tear this away just like Mark had done in the video.
And then to create these patterns, one, for sublimation, if you have a sublimation printer, obviously you can print those yourselves and then heat apply to the glitter flake material. But if you don't, you can still submit those patterns to us here at Stahls, and we can print a sublimation transfer for you to where you can still do that process in your shop.
Absolutely. And so if you have close areas, I'm just taking some tweezers inside to pull out all of the images and the graphics. And if you're still curious on how to sublimate glitter flake, you haven't seen it done yet, there's a video over at stahlstv.com that walks through how to do it on and off the garment. So obviously you'd be using off the garment method for this since you're sublimating it before you get to the final results. So I've completely torn away all of my design here. I'm going to take off my hoop, and I'm going to take my garment actually over to the heat press, just like you guys have seen in the video with Mark with Rip Away Applique. We have to finish this over at the actual heat press. So I'm going to take this over to the clam style heat press and load it on. We have it up a little hot from the sublimation, but I'm going to go ahead and load this and press it anyways, just so you guys can get a nice feel. Normally you'd be around 320 degrees. You'll notice, in addition to my heat press platen, I do have a pillow here. So my heat press pillow is going to help to reduce any issues with pressure. So just like when we're loading any item onto the heat press, you always notice that we recommend making sure you get a flat print area. And one thing that the satin stitch does is it does raise up the area around the glitter flake. And so if you're going to want to make sure you're getting a pressure that's all the way down to the seam here like we have. So that pillow will help to make sure that happens. Obviously the heat seal step, as Mark mentioned, is crucial to making sure that this doesn't peel away from the inside just as easily as it did from the outside. And that's one of the benefits of using the heat seal option for that. I'm going to cover this with a cover sheet just because I have some inks I'm worried about sticking to the top of my press. I'm going to adjust my timer down to about 10 seconds. And then I'm going to lock this in place for the full application. As you add heat printing pillows, you will notice you may need to adjust your pressure to make for the difference in adding that little bit of depth to your heat press.
All right, while that's finishing pressing, I believe we have some questions coming in. So Karen, if you could read those into us, we can start to answer.
Sure. The first question is, do you also get the sew file when you purchase the patterns from Stahls, or is that extra?
The sew file would be extra, so if you're purchasing the pattern pieces like you see, like you saw in the express print video, that would be something separate from the actual applique sew file. You could certainly purchase them both from Stahls, but they'd be two separate components.
Okay. More questions, Karen?
Yep, one more. Can an inkjet printer with the Jet Pro SS paper combine with glitter flake the same way?
We haven't tested that, but I haven't had success with, and I'll switch back over to the table so Zach can kind of join us for the conversation, but we haven't had success really with the inkjet inks being able to transfer into glitter flake. The reason that the sublimation ink works is because glitter flake is a polyester base, so it allows it basically to receive those inks the same way a polyester garment would. It basically opens up the polyester glitter flake material, the ink sinks down in, and it creates that durable print finish.
Okay, so we won't say no for sure, but we haven't tested it with any success. So more than welcome to try it, and if you do, please share those results in the Stahls TV forums, which is at stahlstv.com/forums.
Absolutely.
I think we have one or two more questions coming in. Then we're going to show you how to get this look without an embroidery machine at all. Then we'll wrap up the show. So a few more questions.
What's the name of the embroidery machine that you guys are using?
This one is from ZSK. It's called the Sprint 6, so it's one of their single head machines.
Okay, is that it? All right, I think that's it for questions. So what about those of you, the 52% of you who didn't have an embroidery machine that's viewing today? Well, we have a couple options for you as well. The product, if you order it from Stahls, is called SimStitch. And all SimStitch is a laser cut piece of twill that has a permanent adhesive on the back, and we laser etch the stitches into it. So all you have to have is a heat press to decorate with SimStitch. Now this is a one color look like a standard applique. I'm going to open up our book here to show you a two color, which if you're doing two color designs, these come to you already applied together. So all you have to do is put the finishing application on it. It's still a one hit whether you do a 1, 2, or a 3-color design. In addition to that, you can also still get the pattern look as well. So Courtney will turn to a couple of those here for us, but basically the SimStitch, again, is a laser etch that we sublimate the poly twill. And since it's poly twill, the poly actually stands for polyester. So much like the glitter flake material, it works the same way where the ink becomes one with the fabric, so you don't have any durability issues here. But again, this is a permanent adhesive that has been sublimated on top of the twill, and all you have to do is heat apply it to get those finishes.
Right, there's a whole lot of them available, polka dots, animal print. So like I said, even if you're looking to just get into just using your heat press for applique, it's a whole market for not only fan wear and spirit wear with a lot of these pattern looks, but as you start to get into numbers and names and things, and being able to incorporate some of this maybe into intramural jerseys, or just being able to create names and numbers in general onto football, basketball, baseball, hockey. You're not limited to say, I can't create applique for you. You can do it with your heat press with products like the SimStitch.
Yeah, absolutely. And if you do end up investing in an embroidery machine, you can always use Stahls TV to learn how to do that applique process, and use Stahls sew discs for it as well. So we thank you for joining us today. This has been our opportunity to use one of the new toys that we brought in here to the Stahls TV studios. If you guys would like to see something specific in an episode, please feel free to let us know on the forums at stahlstv.com/forums. Do you know what next week's episode is about?
I do. So next week we're going to talk about another one of those challenges that come across with a lot of decorators, and that is artwork. So whether you're just new and starting out, or you've been doing this for 15, 20 plus years, we're going to talk about some tools, things you can do to speed up the artwork process and make it a little easier on yourself.
Sounds exciting. So we thank you guys for joining us, and we'll see you next week.
See you then.